The name of this video is The Unabashed Autism of the Talking Heads, and that's what it's about.
Please respect my opinions.
Let's start it up. David Byrne of the Talking Heads was and is an autistic icon, having had his hand in films, music, drawings, neuroscience-based performance art, even bike racks, with autism being a major theme in all of them, except the bike racks. They're bike racks. I don't want to reduce Byrne's work to one theme. He has numerous recurring motifs, but they all tend to be fairly autistic. The physicality of music, the social pressures and artifice, revealing the processes of thought itself and the diversity of the processes of thought itself, rituals of performance, concerted efforts to study your fellow man to fit in.
Pick up a few fashion tips. I'm very aware of my appearance.
I've noticed.
Yeah.
Back in the 70s, David Byrne was a shy young man who had some trouble socially. He began performing to Greenwich folkies at open mics, playing rock songs like 96 Tears or standards like Pennies from Heaven. Why would somebody with such social anxiety want to stand in front of a room full of people? As he put it in his book, How Music Works, years later I diagnosed myself as having a very mild, I think, form of Asperger's syndrome. Leaping up in public to do something expressive and then quickly retreating back into my shell seemed, well, sort of normal to me. In 1973, drummer Chris France suggested Byrne take some of the songs that he had mixed in with the covers and start a band with him. And France came up with the name The Artistics, because they were a group of art students. Since Byrne was their frontman, France joked that the band should have been called The Autistics. I half remembered these facts for years and started to jumble them up in my mind slowly, thinking that the original name of the band was The Autistics. Disappointed to learn that that was not the case. It raises some questions though, like, would they have been as popular? Would the name have advanced compassion and understanding of autistic people through representation? Could a neurotypical brain truly even handle an LP called More Songs About Buildings and Food by the Autistics? No, obviously they couldn't. The world wasn't ready for that. Honestly, it's not ready for that now. Since the suggestion was only a joke, the Artistics changed their name not to the Autistics, but to the Talking Heads, which is also a really cool name. David has talked about feeling more comfortable socially now than in the past. While it is possibly just a factor of age and experience, I think it could have something to do with having the freedom to mask less. He is a very successful artist. Probably most people who interact with him are from creative fields themselves, and if he's strange at all, people would just give him a pass. Anyone meeting David Byrne would probably want to walk away with a story like, I met David Byrne and he was a delightfully odd fellow, very passionate and interested in art and stagecraft, nice guy. I wish everybody could be extended the courtesy to have their harmless eccentricities appreciated, but it's just not where the world's at right now.
Pauline Kael wrote, this is way early on, Byrne has a withdrawn, disembodied sci-fi quality. And though there's something unknowable and almost autistic about him, he makes autism fun.
Byrne makes autism fun. My use of that clip is not an endorsement of that statement. It just proves my point. We shouldn't demand minorities dance for the same respect given to those on the opposite end of the hierarchy wheel. I'd also like to point out that there is a very fine line between fetishization and acknowledging the ways that someone's experience can influence their art. Byrne is creative not because he's autistic, but his particular brand of creativity is decidedly autistic. He compared his ability to focus on his interests very intently to another autistic figure, climate activist Greta Thunberg. There was a video essay a few years ago about the concert film Stop Making Sense, and I think about that video essay every time I rewatch the film. The essay was well put together, deeply moving to me, and gave me a greater appreciation of one of my favorite movies and albums. It seems to have disappeared from the internet, but the basic concept was this. The film could be interpreted as Byrne slowly coming out of his shell, dropping his masking, and building a wider support network who appreciate the real him. He becomes more relaxed and expressive when given freedom and community. Wonderful. I love that idea. It's a really interesting way to see it. If you wanted to be overly technical, you could say Byrne has talked about what he sees as his reasons for wheeling out the different elements of stage and music gradually, wanting to alter the performance one effect at a time to show how dramatically each effect changes things, and that you can really only add things as it goes to maintain interest. You need somewhere to go linearly. But I still think this metaphorical reading of the film is important, and I like it even more than what Byrne actually intended. To quote Byrne, who happens to be talking about lighting in this quote, "We read into things, find emotional links between what we see and hear, and to me, these connections are no less true and honest for not being conceived and developed ahead of time." Another interesting aspect of Stop Making Sense to me is the parts where they have visuals on the screen behind them, or they don't. Instead of placing a video behind them, something glitzy, glammy, psychedelic, tough, or scary, they just list nouns. It renders clearer the processes of thought and just how individualized it is for people, and the differences between visual and verbal thinking. Take, for example, the word cowboy. With the same uniform presentation as all the other words, it allows for an individualized experience of imagining, like reading a book. Cowboy may mean tough, rustic, manly, renegade, traveler, freedom. You might picture a comic book hero type like Roy Rogers, but your neighbor might read cowboy and think,
"Doesn't that make you remind you of something? Like, for example, settler colonialism in North America in the 1400s to the 1800s.
diamonds, parties, drugs, dollface, Star Wars, onions, dust balls. Those are certainly some words. And on that note, lyrics. One of their biggest and most beloved hits is Cross-Eyed and Painless. I've always interpreted the song as being about trying to camouflage neurodivergent traits. The pressure of what happens when your adaptive coping does not satiate the neurotypical other, and sadly internalizing those pressures as a form of self-hatred. The title supports this reading as well because people with autism are more likely to have strabismus or crossed eyes, and painless, like being given a sedative such as at an institution. Remain in Light in general is packed very densely with emotion. This adaptive coping theme comes up again on Seen and Not Seen. The narrator of this track tries to will his face, which he equates with the ego, self, or presentation of the self, into the shape of socially desirable forms that he learned from TV. One of my favorite Byrne tracks is his collaboration with St. Vincent, I Should Watch TV.
Wanted to know what folks were thinking, to understand the land I live in. And I would lose myself and it would set me free.
This song is about a lot of things. It's about racism, Walt Whitman's Song of Myself and the various multitudes contained within, which ropes in non-dualist spirituality, but I'm a little hung up on studying the world through a TV set, and it seems David was too, so let's just stay there for a minute. TV isn't an accurate description of life, but it is some kind of reflection of the perspectives that went into making it. It's a safe window for people often ostracized from the comparatively unpredictable real world to peer through. The song describes a voyeuristic form of communication through a two-way mirror. Fitting art into a broader tapestry of culture makes people feel connected to humanity, and even makes bad art at least a little interesting. When I glimpse a tiny bit of the vastness of culture, I lose myself, and it sets me free. You could spend your entire life learning about art and not scratch the surface because it extends out in all directions. The character in the song achieves transcendence in both art and nature, through poems like Leaves of Grass, but also by touching grass, seeking to both understand and be understood in a unity and acceptance for even the oddballs and misfits. David's work is very often about trying to understand what makes people tick, both himself and others. Even something like one's food is presented as a key to an unknowable puzzle that is other people.
I thought that if I ate the food of the area I was visiting, that I might assimilate the point of view of the people there, as if the point of view was somehow in the food.
Social studies, that's brilliant. And this theme of social studies through media is evident in both the themes and writing process of True Stories, a 1986 film, which is, as far as I can tell, the only good musical about autism. True Stories is a series of loosely connected vignettes about small-town life in Virgil, Texas. I don't know if that's where disgraced former podcaster Virgil, Texas got his stage name from, but I do know that this film did inspire a certain other namesake. So, David collected a lot of ideas from tabloid human interest stories, which he collected on tour. I could technically describe a loose plot to the film, Louis Fine and his musical and love aspirations, but I think the plot is not even what matters about this film. The theme of social artifice that's all over this thing is just, it's mwah. Roger Ebert opens his review of this film by pointing out that David Byrne made sure the movie had 50 sets of twins, and wonders what kind of person could possibly think that 50 sets of twins would make or break their content. I think it fits with this theme of the film, though. Byrne's self-insert is always glancing at other people's paper to make sure he's on task. No one can say he doesn't fit in if he copies somebody who does fit in. He's talked in several places about how it is enthusiastically failing to copy someone else's artistic technique that the real you arises. As we often say on this channel, art is communication, and communication is art. People arrange their belongings, homes, food, clothes to symbolize things that can't be put into words. They go to a preacher, or the mall, or a fashion show for the explicitly stated purposes of learning how to fit in. Even the characters who are supposed to be defined by their normalcy, the quotidian life of middle-class folk in a small Texan town, are still somehow so unusual.
Today we have a fashion show, and I think it's going to be something that you'll just love. It's very unusual.
And of course, the people who come out after that introduction are dressed in gray suits like the Talking Heads. Much has been said about the formal dress of the Talking Heads seeming both strange and so normal it's strange. So normal it's strange could be a tagline for the whole film, or the band in general. Fashion has always made a big deal about standing out. Byrne's character, by contrast, is spending his time trying to figure out how to seem less unique for fear of ostracization.
Of course, nowadays, not everyone's having kids. Not with with the end of the world coming up and all. I mean, would you?
No, not at all.
No.
When describing the motivation of character Earl Culver to actor Spalding Gray, Byrne started by showing him a series of drawings of gestures and told him he's the type of character that would do these kinds of hand gestures. Recreating a person from an abstracted symbol that they use to express themselves is not really autistic because it's something everyone does. Perhaps noticing it is autistic because you have to systematize it to understand and fit in. In everyday life, one may make a whole myriad of assumptions about someone based on their hand gestures. I know what they're like because they flashed that symbol at me. The film highlights just how unusual human conversation actually is. Fine not only says that he's looking for love, but he sings it. And he sings it even in his daily life. He sings it on stage. He produces a commercial want ad. Even when Fine just speaks, he speaks in symbols. He is not only looking for a person, he's looking for a wife. He's looking for a ritual, which is a symbolic expression of the abstract concept of love, the thing that he's actually looking for.
And I'm looking for matrimony with a capital M. I believe in the joys and contentment of matrimony. I'm looking for someone who can accept me for what I am.
Real feelings that are gestured at by these series of culturally contingent symbols. He loves matrimony because he loves what matrimony represents in his mind. The film focuses on the wishy-washy gestures towards things that are no less wishy-washy. Marriage is a social construct, but so is music, passion, respect, anger, or the particulars of the autism spectrum.
Things that never had names before are now easily described.
We end up with a bunch of lighting, choreography, and dialogue meant to convey things too grand to ever be fully understood. Life itself. I think it's an overly rigid marriage to the past that's the problem. Let's say the idea, marriage is a legal and spiritual performance between a man and a woman. Collectively, we've tweaked that because the symbol was getting in the way of what it symbolized. The definition excluded something it was supposed to uphold.
What's in their hearts and girls want to be with the girls.
By focusing on the artifice of these social rituals, we can remember that they are not written in stone, to make sure that the symbols continue to serve our purposes as our understanding grows. There is a thing that it is to love, or fear, or hope, or even to be autistic. And we make words or art or conversations or classifications to express those real experiences, but it's not written in stone. We're doing these things. You can say you feel excited or sad or scared, or you can vibrate metal strings in specific durations and sequences until they make a series of tones that you can show to someone and say, this is how I feel. This is what I'm feeling. Gifts, sacraments, a knowing shared silence, an interpretive dance at a funeral, color grading, and the framing of establishing shots in a musical film about autism can share something, can offer something precious, understanding of ourselves and each other. If human social situations are invented, maybe we can invent social situations where not intuiting invisible social conventions is understood as just part of nature's beautiful diversity. Learning, thinking, socializing differently could be appreciated and accommodated rather than punished and ostracized.
Maybe someday we can stand together, not afraid of what our eyes might see. Maybe someday we can stand together, the real things inside of me.
Oh, would you look at the time? It's getting late. It took a very long time to make this short video, so please consider how much likes, comments, subscriptions, ringing the bell help creators like me. And my sincerest thank you for watching.
Pretty smart. You're on the ground.
Who that? Who that? Now who that trying to be bad? Your mama? Who that? Who that? Now who that trying to be bad? You mother?
Shut your mouth. But I'm talking about heads. Then I can dig it. He's a complicated man.
And also there's the cheat. Oh, there's the cheat in the place where the tropical breezes blow.
I'm writing